General Motors screwed almost 1 million truck owners. The latest news on top of all the other news with bad transmissions, and we heard about the lifter issues, people dealing with all kinds of recalls that have kept their trucks in the dealership, and the reputation is taking a hit. And that's the worst part. It's not just the fact that you have to take your truck in, it's the fact that even though with a 4.3% increase in sales, but that does leave the buyers with the question, can I trust General Motors? Chevy and General Motors have had a spectacular year selling trucks this year, and they're tied up there with Ford. They've had spectacular sales results, and they continue selling these vehicles. Now, unfortunately, the latest recall could in fact put them on their heels. When we're looking at vehicles like the Chevy Silverado, the GMC like this, and the Sierra, they're great looking trucks, they're beautiful, they have all of the great technology, and they become one of the most popular sellers in the full-size lineup. I mean, with people now electing not to buy the Rams because of the high prices and the quality issues, and now you can only get a 6-cylinder engine in a lot of the Ram products. On top of it, Ford is selling a lot of trucks as well, but GMC and Chevy have been top pops and selling a lot of full-size trucks. As again, Silverados and Sierras, Tahoes, Yukons, and even Suburbans are selling great numbers. A lot of these vehicles now that come equipped with the L87 V8 engine under the hood means that they could be risked a significant failure. There's been at least 58 complaints now with that specific engine, the L87, where they allege that they've had absolute catastrophic engine failures. Driving down the road, minding their own business, all of a sudden the vehicle clunk, 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 or just stops completely. Now, where a lot of people get scared about this isn't just that the engine breaks and then they have to take it to the dealer, and the dealer may potentially replace the engine, which they are on the hook for, by the way, at least if it's recognized under warranty or the NHTSA. A lot of people are worried about driving down the road like this, and all of a sudden the engine stops, and then naturally there's a risk for collision. General Motors has had significant issues with recalls, bad transmissions, bad engines in some cases, with the 5.3s, the 6.2s having to do lifter and rocker problems with those vehicles, a lot of electronics, and we know even like the Blazer and the Blazer EV, some of the interfaces had to go back for reprogramming. There was actually a period of time last year where they had to halt production because of significant issues with the programming and the design of a lot of their infotainment programming and the additional electronics mounted on board. So big question is, why does this stuff keep happening? Why do they constantly see more transmission problems, more engine problems coming out of General Motors as well? Not only limited to these, Ford's had more than their share. They're certainly leading the recall, and they're known as the recall kings. The same with Stellantis and the Rams. None of these products have particularly good quality, and it's been that way a long time. While Toyota and the Tundra has had problems with the engines and their new V6s, the bottom line is that's a relatively small blip in the radar. These problems have existed with these three big domestic product manufacturers, GM, Chevy, Ford, Ram, or Dodge, have all had problems for years. But why is this happening? We let it happen. And see, a lot of the problem goes back to the chicken tax, which was derived by governments years ago to prevent foreign vehicles from coming in and horning in on the business. The reliability of a lot of those products were potentially better, but by creating the chicken tax many years ago, it put these vehicles in a position where they had a much more advantageous time. They were able to sell vehicles much more competitively within the big three, and it kept a lot of the outside manufacturers that were great strict competition outside of the game. It was not cost competitive for them to try to compete. These manufacturers by Chevy, GM, Ford, Ram were all doing their own thing, all creating comparable products, and we just got used to buying vehicles that didn't have the quality and the durability and reliability that we all love. Well, they're big heavy-duty trucks built on big sturdy platforms, and they'll do heavy work. Their attribute is not reliability necessarily. Yeah, they'll bang around, they'll clunk around, they'll make noise, and they'll run a long time. The overall reliability is not getting any better. Now with modern day engines, of course, GM, now we're getting into some of these more technical engines, more electronics. It's just a recipe for disaster. And a lot of these vehicles are just a module away from catastrophic failure. On top of it, these engines now too rush through the market, and of course with the UAW strikes that we've seen in the last couple years, that puts a lot of the workers building these vehicles in a position where they're not loving it. And especially when there was during that strike a couple years back, there was a lot of workers that just weren't in a good state of mind, likely, and a lot of these vehicles probably weren't put together with the most love, care, and attention. A lot of it unfortunately does come from the top, and the OEMs and the management is trying to push these products through as quick as possible, get these out to the field, And let's face it, during 2000, when there was that shortage of chips, many people commented that the overall quality of vehicles went down. Insiders are even saying over at Ford that Ford's putting 2,400 less parts within their new trucks in 25 than they did the year before. In other words, they're reducing the number of single components and creating more modularity. Everything's for the sake of cutting costs. And that's just where we're at. We're in a time now where they're looking for efficiency. They're looking to cut costs, and it's starting to show. It's starting to rear its ugly face. Why are we seeing so many failures? Because there's more cost cutting, in my own personal opinion. Remember years ago when GM introduced glue to hold on their doors? Everybody laughed about it, but that was another example. If they could save 6 bolts, 8 bolts to bolt a door onto the chassis and use glue instead, they would save even $1, $2 per vehicle. Multiply that by millions of vehicles, that's a ton of money. And General Motors, Chevy, GM, they realized early that there's little nuances, there's little efficiencies they can gain, and by doing that, they can save a ton of money. Some of these cost savings are starting to catch up, starting to creep in there, and now we're starting to see what the results are. The worst part is customers coming out of the dealing with those 5.3s and 6.2s with the rocker problems, now all these transmission issues that they've had. On top of it, now the latest is 887,000 engines are potentially going to need replacement or investigation because of potential rod bearing failures. That's right, catastrophic engine failures to the bottom end means that a lot of customers are going to have to take their vehicles in for assessment and possible engine replacements. Yukons, Tahoes, Cadillacs, and as well Chevy Silverado and the GMC Sierra products like we're looking at right here. From 2019 to 2024, pretty much inclusively, if you have one of those vehicles with that style of engine, there's a high probability, if you're driving that gas engine with the L87, that you may be at a significant risk of one of those engines catastrophically failing on you. Now, while this may not seem like a significant problem, the issues is it keeps mounting and mounting and mounting. If it's not one issue, it's another, it's another. And this takes more than an impact on your wallet or a time at the dealership. This is taking a significant toll on the reputation of the brand, a brand that you could rely on for being a rugged, durable workhorse pickup truck. And now on top of it, a lot of customers are having to take their vehicles in, take time off work, and deal with that accordingly. Now, while GM may or may not replace the engine in most cases, allegedly NHTSA, if they get their hands on it, the dealerships and the OEM will have to replace these engines. The fact remains is if you have one of those vehicles, you could in fact be dealing with a whole pile of issues. The worst part is, with the reputation and durability of a lot of these manufacturers, where can you go these days? If you can't go for a reliable V8 that's dealing with bad transmissions, rod bearings, lifter problems, and all kinds of electrical issues, where else do you go? Toyota? Well, the Tundra's got their twin turbo V6 that's got catastrophic engine issues too, and they're under a current recall of over 100,000 units to replace. Ford's got issues with EcoBoost engines, and Ram is moving into this brand new turbocharged Hurricane engine that we don't yet know what the quality's like and the durability long term, as it's just came out this year. The full-size truck market does not leave us in a state of mass confidence. Every single brand seems to be struggling with challenges, whether it's durability, catastrophic failures, and everything is extremely high priced. It means that customers are getting screwed every which way they go, and sadly it all leaves us in a lurch. Where do we go, and how badly do these truck owners get screwed? And with all of that said, if you want to check out some of the most reliable vehicles this year in 25, you're going to want to check out that list. It's going to help you make the right choice. Hope to see each and every one of you on the next one. See you real soon. Bye-bye.